The city streets buzzed with activity, the vibrant pulse of modern life where everyone seemed to be in a rush. Yellow taxis zipped by, and the occasional honk of an impatient driver echoed through the towering skyscrapers. Among the throngs of people, there was one who stood apart. A girl no older than 20, with unkempt hair and a worn-out coat, stood near the curb, scanning the digital map on her phone. She had no home, no safety net, only the cold, relentless grind of survival in the city. Her name was Lily. Just a few months ago, she had been living in a modest apartment with her mother, but life had a way of stripping away everything, one piece at a time. Her mother had died of cancer, leaving Lily to face the harsh reality of the world alone. The few friends she once had turned their backs on her, unable or unwilling to understand the struggles of someone with nothing to her name. Without a job, without a place to stay, Lily had been forced to sleep in shelters, under bridges, or wherever she could find a safe spot to close her eyes for a few hours. Tonight was no different. The cold air bit at her skin as she stood, shivering slightly, waiting for her Uber. She hadn't eaten in hours, and her stomach growled with the kind of hunger that made her feel invisible. It had been a long day, filled with the usual routine of scrounging for food, looking for odd jobs and trying to keep her head above water. She had promised herself that she would find a way out of this, that tomorrow would be different. But for now, all she could do was wait for the ride that would take her to another night of uncertainty. Lily tapped on her phone again, checking to see if her ride was near. The app showed that it was, but the car still hadn't arrived. She sighed, her fingers growing numb from the cold. She glanced around, hoping to spot a car in the sea of traffic. Then something caught her eye. A sleek black car, a luxury model that stood out among the regular vehicles on the road, was slowly approaching. The tinted windows made it impossible to see who was inside, but there was something about the car that drew her in. Maybe it was the promise of warmth, or the fleeting hope that someone inside would offer her the kindness she so desperately needed. She squinted at the car, thinking it could be her Uber. There was no other explanation. The app had said it was coming, and this was the only car that seemed to fit the description. Without thinking, Lily stepped forward, ready to get into the car, just as she would with any other ride. She didn't hesitate. She needed to get away from the street, away from the biting cold and the ever-present feeling of judgment. She opened the door and slid inside, hoping the driver wouldn't notice how she looked, how little she had. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual. "Thanks for picking me up." The man behind the wheel didn't respond immediately, and Lily glanced up at him, trying to get a glimpse of his face. He was dressed in a sharp suit, the kind of suit that screamed money. He looked at her for a moment, his sharp blue eyes scanning her with a quiet intensity. He was older than she expected, probably in his 40s, his face weathered, his jaw strong and defined. There was an air of confidence around him, the kind of confidence that only comes from years of success, the kind of confidence that Lily couldn't relate to, but could only dream of. "Where to?" he asked, his voice deep, commanding. Lily hesitated for a second, realizing that she had no idea where she was going. She hadn't planned on the ride, just hoping to get out of the cold. But there was a part of her that wanted to get as far away as possible from the familiar streets. She needed a break, a moment to feel like she was someone else. "Just take me somewhere. Anywhere," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The man didn't ask questions, and the car silently merged into the traffic. The hum of the engine was soothing, the smoothness of the ride almost too perfect for someone like her. Felt like an odd dream, like she didn't belong here, but she couldn't help herself. She closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to drift away from her reality, just for a little while. As the car cruised through the city, Lily couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between herself and the man driving. She was barely holding things together while he seemed to have everything: wealth, power, control. She wondered what it would be like to live in his world. She wondered if it was as lonely as hers. She shook the thought away, reminding herself that this was just another ride, just another night in a string of many. But then the car turned a corner, and the scenery began to change. Instead of the familiar streets lined with fast food joints and dollar stores, the buildings around her became grander, more polished. She didn't know it yet, but they were heading toward one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city, the kind of place where only the elite could afford to live. The car stopped in front of a massive gated mansion, its grandeur impossible to ignore. Lily's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just any ride. This was something entirely different. "Are we there?" she asked, confused. The man turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. "You've been invited," he said simply. His words hung in the air for a moment, heavy with meaning. Lily's heart raced. She didn't know what he meant. But before she could ask, the driver was already opening the door for her. "Come on, let's go inside," he said, his tone almost inviting. Lily didn't know what was happening. She didn't know why she was here or what the man wanted from her, but something inside her, something she couldn't quite explain, urged her to follow. And so she did. The gates opened, and Lily stepped into the world of the wealthy, unsure of what awaited her, but sensing that this ride was about to change everything. The gates of the mansion creaked open, revealing a path lined with manicured hedges and towering trees. The driveway was paved with smooth cobblestones, leading up to a massive building that looked more like a palace than a home. Its white marble columns gleamed under the streetlights, and the windows sparkled with the reflection of the city lights. It was a sight Lily had only ever seen in movies, too perfect to be real. She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment. The man had already stepped out of the car and was walking toward the grand entrance without saying a word. Lily hesitated for a moment, standing frozen at the edge of the driveway, her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't her world. This wasn't the kind of place someone like her belonged in. She had no idea why she had been brought here or what was expected of her. The sound of footsteps behind her startled her, and she turned to find the man waiting for her. His expression was unreadable, but there was something about him, a quiet strength, a confidence, that made her feel both small and yet oddly safe in his presence. "Come on," he said again, this time more insistently. "Don't worry, you'll be fine." Lily hesitated again, looking around the lavish estate. She could hear faint laughter and music drifting from inside the mansion. The thought of stepping into that world, the world of wealth and privilege, terrified her. But there was also a strange pull, something she couldn't explain, that urged her to follow. With a deep breath, she took a step forward. The man nodded, leading her toward the large double doors. As they approached, the doors opened effortlessly, revealing a grand foyer. The marble floors shimmered, and golden chandeliers hung overhead, casting a soft, warm glow over the room. It was more beautiful than anything Lily had ever seen. The air smelled faintly of fresh flowers and something rich, like expensive perfume. Lily felt out of place as she walked into the foyer. She stood there, awkwardly shifting from foot to foot, unsure of where to go or what to do. She could hear the murmur of conversation coming from a room to her left, and the clinking of glasses, as if a party was already in full swing. "Right this way," the man said, motioning for her to follow him. She complied, her heart racing as she walked through the hallway, her shoes clicking against the marble floor. Every step felt heavier than the last, and she wondered if she could just turn around and leave. But the thought of returning to the cold streets, of facing another lonely night, kept her moving forward. They reached a large open room where a group of people were gathered, laughing and talking over glasses of champagne. At first, no one seemed to notice Lily as she entered. They were all too busy with their conversations, caught up in the world of the elite. But as she stood at the entrance of the room, something shifted. The air grew still, and she felt a dozen eyes turn toward her. The man who had driven her here stepped into the room, his presence commanding attention. "Everyone, this is Lily," he announced, his voice carrying across the space. "She's a special guest tonight." Lily froze, her stomach dropping. Special guest? What did that even mean? She had no idea how to respond. She barely knew how she had ended up here, and now she was being introduced like she belonged. She glanced around the room, feeling the weight of the eyes on her. The women were dressed in designer gowns, their hair styled to perfection. The men were in sharp suits, their conversations full of business deals and social politics. In the midst of all this opulence, Lily felt like a fish out of water. She didn't belong here. She wasn't supposed to be here. The man who had introduced her, his name was Nicholas, though she hadn't gotten a chance to ask him much, stepped back, allowing her to stand alone in the middle of the room. His presence was still there, looming just behind her, but now she was the center of attention. It felt like everyone was waiting for her to do something, to prove that she deserved to be here. Lily's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, but no one was offering one. Instead, she was trapped in this strange world, surrounded by people who had everything, while she had nothing. She wanted to shrink, to disappear into the shadows, but there was nowhere to hide. The walls of the mansion seemed to close in on her, the golden light flickering and dancing as if mocking her. A woman in a sparkling blue gown approached her, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. She was tall, with dark hair styled in waves, and her eyes held a look of curiosity. There was something about her that made Lily uncomfortable, as if she could see right through her. "Lily, right?" she said, her voice smooth and cool. "I'm Grace. Nicholas mentioned you're new to this world." Lily nodded, her throat dry. Yeah. I don't really know what I'm doing here." Grace smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Don't worry. We all have our place in this world. Some people just find it sooner than others." She took a step back, scanning Lily's outfit, her worn-out coat and scuffed shoes, before turning her attention to Nicholas. "Are you sure this is the right kind of guest for tonight?" Lily's face flushed with embarrassment. She hadn't expected to be judged, not so openly. She wasn't one of these people. She never would be. Her fingers tightened around her coat, feeling the rough fabric against her skin. But Nicholas stepped forward, cutting off Grace before she could say anything more. "Grace," Nicholas said, his voice calm but firm. "Lily is exactly the kind of guest we need. We're all here to learn something tonight, aren't we?" His eyes flicked toward the other guests, and they seemed to understand his unspoken command. Grace's smile faltered for a moment, but she said nothing more. Lily stood there, unsure of what to do next. The tension in the air was palpable, and for a moment, she thought she might pass out from the weight of it. But then, unexpectedly, Nicholas turned back to her and gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Don't worry," he said quietly, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "You're here for a reason. Just enjoy the night. We're all here to have a good time." Lily wasn't sure if she believed him, but there was something in his words, something that made her feel just a little bit better, just enough to push her through the crowd and take her place in this strange world. The evening had only just begun, and Lily couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The night was beginning to unfold in ways Lily hadn't expected. As the hours passed, the luxurious mansion grew more familiar, though it still felt like a foreign world to her. The initial discomfort of being the outsider in a room full of high-society elites hadn't completely faded, but it was slowly being replaced by a curiosity she couldn't ignore. Nicholas had been nothing but polite, offering her a glass of wine and guiding her through conversations with various guests, some of whom were genuinely kind, while others seemed more curious about her presence. It was as if they couldn't quite decide whether to pity her or to view her as some kind of novelty, an anomaly who had somehow found herself in the center of their world. Lily, for her part, was still overwhelmed by the opulence of the mansion. The fine art on the walls, the polished wooden furniture, the glimmering chandeliers. All of it was so out of reach for her. It wasn't just about the wealth, it was about the way these people lived, the ease with which they navigated through life. No one had ever spoken to her with such kindness before, and certainly not with the kind of attention Nicholas had shown her. She tried to remind herself that this was just a moment, a fleeting encounter that would end when the night did. She didn't belong here, and she couldn't afford to forget that. As the evening wore on, Nicholas took her aside, away from the prying eyes of the other guests. They moved into a quieter part of the mansion, a library of sorts, filled with towering bookshelves and plush chairs that seemed to invite deep conversation. The soft glow of the fireplace flickered in the background, casting long shadows across the room. "Would you like to sit down?" he asked, his tone still warm but more serious now. Lily hesitated but nodded, taking a seat on the edge of a chair as he settled across from her. There was an uncomfortable silence between them for a moment before Nicholas finally spoke again. "You don't belong in a place like this, do you?" The bluntness of his words made Lily freeze, but there was no malice in his tone, just an understanding, almost as if he had seen something in her that was undeniable. I don't know what you mean," Lily stammered, not sure how to respond. She tried to avoid his gaze, but his blue eyes seemed to pierce through her, waiting for an answer she wasn't sure she had. Nicholas tilted his head slightly, studying her as if she were a puzzle he was trying to figure out. "You're not like the others. The others here, they have their places. They have their wealth, their status. But you have something different, something real. Why do you hide it?" Lily blinked, her mind racing. What was he talking about? She wasn't anything special, just a girl who had fallen through the cracks. Nothing more, nothing less. But somehow, in his eyes, she could sense that he saw more. "I don't hide anything," she replied quietly. I don't belong here." Nicholas leaned forward slightly, his voice low but intense. "That's where you're wrong, Lily. You do belong here. But more than that, I think you've been brought here for a reason." Lily's heart skipped a beat. "Brought here? What do you mean?" Before he could answer, the sound of laughter echoed from the hallway, followed by the clinking of glasses. It was a stark reminder of the world outside this room, the world Lily had never belonged to, and yet, for some inexplicable reason, found herself part of tonight. Nicholas sat back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "There's something I should tell you, something I've been meaning to explain. You might not understand it now, but you will in time." Lily frowned, feeling a growing unease in the pit of her stomach. The way Nicholas was speaking made her feel like she was about to be let in on some big secret, something that had the potential to turn her world upside down. But she wasn't sure she was ready for it. "I'm not sure I understand," she said slowly. "What do you mean? What is it that you want from me?" He sighed, the weight of something unspoken hanging between them. "I've been watching you, Lily, for a while now." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. She stared at him wide-eyed, too shocked to speak. "Don't worry, I'm not some kind of stalker," Nicholas added quickly, noticing her reaction. "But you see, I've been following your story. I know what you've been through, the hardships, the pain." Lily's breath caught in her throat. She had always done her best to keep her struggles hidden, to avoid anyone seeing the depth of her vulnerability. But somehow Nicholas had found out. He had seen through the fragile facade she'd built. You've been following me?" Her voice trembled slightly. "I know how hard it's been for you," he said softly. "I know what it feels like to lose everything, to be completely alone, with no one to turn to. But that's why I brought you here tonight." Lily couldn't believe what she was hearing. Felt like she was caught in some surreal nightmare. Why would someone like Nicholas, someone who had everything, care about a girl like her? "You've been brought here because I believe you have the potential to do something great," Nicholas continued, his gaze unwavering. "I want to help you, Lily. I see something in you, something that the world has ignored. I want to give you a chance, a real chance to change your life." Lily shook her head in disbelief. "What are you talking about? I'm just a girl. I don't have anything to give." Nicholas smiled, a small, knowing smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "That's where you're wrong. You have everything you need to succeed. You just need someone to show you the way." For the first time since she arrived, Lily felt a flicker of hope, a dangerous, unfamiliar feeling. Could it be true? Could she really have a chance to escape the life she had known for so long? "I'm offering you something, Lily," Nicholas said, his voice soft but insistent. "A chance to leave all of this behind. You don't have to go back to the streets. You don't have to struggle anymore." Lily opened her mouth to protest, to remind him of who she was, but the words got stuck in her throat. She couldn't deny the offer. The idea of a new life, of being free from the suffocating weight of her past, was too tempting to ignore. But could she trust him? Could she trust someone who had so much, someone who seemed to see right through her? "You don't have to decide now," Nicholas said, as if reading her thoughts. "Take your time, but I'm offering you a way out. A chance to live the life you've always wanted." Lily felt the weight of his words, and for the first time in a long while she wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of the endless cycle of survival. But she knew better than anyone that nothing came without a price. The question was, what was the cost? Lily sat in the plush chair, her fingers trembling slightly, her mind racing with the whirlwind of emotions that Nicholas's words had stirred within her. This wasn't just some fleeting moment. No, this was a crossroads. An opportunity, a decision that could change the entire course of her life. She could feel it in her bones, the weight of the choice that was now laid before her. She had lived her entire life with the barest of essentials, barely scraping by, doing everything she could just to survive. The thought of a life free from the constant worry, the cold, the hunger, it seemed impossible. But here, in this grand room with its marble floors and golden chandeliers, Nicholas had just offered her that life. A life of comfort, security, and, she couldn't deny it, power. But it was more than just a life of luxury. Nicholas's offer wasn't simply about getting out of the streets, out of the suffocating routine of living day to day, hoping she could make it through the next one. No, there was something deeper to it. He had seen something in her, something he said the world had ignored. And maybe he was right. She had always thought of herself as small, as insignificant, as someone who didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. She had always been invisible. But here, in front of this man who had everything, she suddenly felt like she was being seen. The idea that someone so powerful, believed in her, believed that she had potential, it made her feel, for the first time in years, like she wasn't invisible. But there was a part of her that couldn't shake the nagging fear in her gut. What was the catch? Nothing in life came for free. She'd learned that lesson long ago. People who offered something so big, so grand, there was always a price to pay. And the price might not always be something you could see right away. Nicholas was still watching her, waiting, as though he already knew her decision, as if he knew the turmoil that was tearing through her. She could feel the pressure of his gaze, the silent understanding that lingered in the air between them. "Why me?" she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why would you help me? What do you want in return?" Nicholas leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. For a moment, he seemed to consider her question deeply, as if choosing his words carefully. When he spoke, his voice was soft but steady. "Because I see potential in you," he said, his tone earnest. "You're not like the others. The others here, they've had everything handed to them. They've never had to fight, never had to struggle. You've fought your entire life. You've had to scrape and survive. And that's what sets you apart. You understand things they don't. You've lived through things they've never had to face. That's strength, Lily." His words struck her like a bolt of lightning, the truth of them resonating deep within her. She had never thought of herself as strong. In fact, most days, she felt like the weight of the world was on her shoulders, and she could barely keep herself from crumbling under the pressure. But Nicholas was right. She had fought every single day, clawing her way through life, even when it seemed like the odds were stacked against her. "How do you know I can do this?" Lily asked, her voice still filled with doubt. "How do you know I'm not just some girl who's in over her head?" Nicholas's eyes softened. "Because I've seen it before. People like you, people who have nothing, become something extraordinary when given the chance. You just need the right opportunity." The words sank in like a stone. Could she really do this? Could she step into a new life? A life where she wasn't just scraping by, a life where she could actually take control of her destiny? She didn't know. She didn't know if she was strong enough for that kind of change. "But I don't know anything about this world," she said, the insecurity creeping into her voice. "I don't know anything about business or how to be around people like you. I don't fit in here." Nicholas smiled. A small, reassuring smile that somehow made her feel less like an outsider. You don't have to know everything right away. I'll teach you, and you'll learn fast. People like you, people who have had to fight for everything, are the ones who understand the real value of things. It's a skill the others don't have. She felt a flicker of hope, but it was tempered by the voice in her mind telling her to be careful. There was something about Nicholas's offer that felt too perfect, too easy. "You've been good to me tonight," Lily said quietly, her eyes meeting his. "But I need to know the truth. What are you really asking of me?" Nicholas's gaze never wavered, and his expression remained calm. "I'm asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to step into a new life, a life where you don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from, or whether you'll have a place to sleep at night. I'm asking you to take a chance, Lily, but I'm not asking for anything in return. Not right away. But eventually, when you're ready, you'll see. The people in my world, this world, it can be isolating. You'll understand that soon enough. What I'm offering you is a chance to be more than you ever thought you could be." Lily took a deep breath, letting his words settle over her. She didn't know what the future held, or what would happen if she accepted his offer. But she did know one thing. This was the first time someone had ever made her feel like she mattered. Someone was giving her a chance, an opportunity to rise above everything that had dragged her down. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was worth the risk. She looked at Nicholas, her heart pounding in her chest. She had lived her life always looking over her shoulder, always afraid of the next bad thing that would come her way. But now, for the first time, she was looking forward to something. A future, a chance, a possibility. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady but her insides trembling. "I'll take the chance." Nicholas's eyes lit up with something like satisfaction, though there was no smugness in his expression. "Good. You've made the right choice." Lily wasn't sure if she had made the right choice or not. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was taking control of her life. She wasn't sure where this road would lead, or what the consequences would be. But she was ready to find out. As Nicholas stood and extended his hand to her, she took it, the warmth of his touch grounding her in the moment. The world outside this room, the world she had known, the world of struggle and survival, felt miles away. And for the first time, Lily didn't feel so invisible. The weeks that followed felt like a blur of unfamiliar faces, endless meetings, and opportunities Lily had never dared to dream of. What Nicholas had offered her wasn't just a chance. It was an entirely new life, one she hadn't been prepared for but was now slowly growing into, step by step. She had moved into one of the guest rooms at the mansion, a room far more lavish than anything she had ever known, with high ceilings, soft rugs, and views of the sprawling gardens outside. The world outside her window was so different from the one she had left behind. The contrast was jarring, and it often took her breath away. The mansion, which had once felt like an alien world, was slowly becoming a place she could almost call home. Nicholas, though still an enigma to her, had proven to be not just her benefactor but also her mentor. His guidance was subtle but constant. He would drop hints, provide feedback, and always challenge her to do better. Under his careful watch, Lily was learning the art of the game of power, influence, and success. Nicholas had introduced her to his network of high-profile contacts, each one more powerful and influential than the last. At first, she felt like a fish out of water, out of place in a world where everyone seemed to know exactly what they were doing. But as time passed, she began to understand their ways, their subtle manipulations, their ability to smile while calculating every word and action. But even as she adapted to this new world, something inside her continued to feel uneasy. There was a constant nagging feeling in her gut, a sense that, despite everything she had gained, she was still on the edge of something dangerous. She had heard whispers among the staff, hints that Nicholas's offer might have strings attached. The world she had stepped into was filled with complexities, and she wondered if there was more to his help than he had let on. One evening, after another long day of meetings and lessons in high society etiquette, Nicholas invited her to join him for dinner. The mansion's grand dining hall was as immaculate as always, the soft glow of chandeliers illuminating the perfectly set table. Lily sat across from Nicholas, who seemed perfectly at ease, though Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something was different tonight. As they ate, Nicholas spoke about the future, about the potential Lily had, and how she could soon take on more responsibility within his empire. The future he painted for her was one of power and influence, one where she would no longer be a bystander but a player in a world she had once only observed from the outside. But as the conversation went on, Lily's mind kept wandering to the whispers she had overheard. Her curiosity got the better of her. "Why did you really bring me here, Nicholas?" she asked, her voice steady but probing. "What's the real reason? You've done so much for me, but I can't help but wonder what you expect in return." Nicholas paused mid-bite, his eyes darkening slightly. It was a subtle shift, but Lily noticed it immediately. He put his fork down and looked at her across the table, his gaze intense. "You think I've done all this just for your benefit, don't you?" he asked, his voice low but not unkind. "You think this is all about you getting a better life. But the truth is, Lily, I've offered you a place here because I believe in you. I believe you have the potential to do something much bigger than just survive. But there is a price for everything." Lily's heart skipped a beat. There it was, the catch. She had known it was coming. She had known there had to be something more. "What kind of price?" she asked, trying to keep the tremor from her voice. Nicholas leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "You want to know the truth? The truth is, I see in you the same thing I saw in myself when I was your age. I see someone who can change the game, someone who can rise above the chaos and take control. And I've been looking for someone like you, someone who is hungry, who has nothing left to lose, and who can learn to play the game as well as anyone. But power, Lily, is never free. You've seen it, haven't you? You've seen what people will do to keep it." Lily's mind raced. The idea of power, the kind of influence he was talking about, was tempting, intoxicating even. But the idea that there was a price, that there were things she would have to do to truly earn her place in this world, made her blood run cold. "I don't want to be part of that world," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't want to hurt people just to climb to the top. That's not who I am." Nicholas's expression softened, and for a moment, she saw something vulnerable in his eyes, something that made her doubt everything she thought she knew about him. "Not all power is gained by hurting others," he said slowly. "But sometimes you have to play along with the rules, even if you don't agree with them. The world doesn't care about your morals, Lily. Cares about results." Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She had always thought of herself as someone with a moral compass, someone who wanted to stay true to her values. But now, as she sat in this mansion, in this world of wealth and privilege, she wondered if that would be enough to survive. Would her values hold up when faced with the kind of decisions Nicholas was talking about? The dinner ended soon after, but Lily couldn't shake the weight of their conversation. She lay in her bed that night, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. She had been given everything: comfort, safety, opportunity. But at what cost? In the days that followed, she continued to meet with more of Nicholas's business partners, to grow her understanding of the intricacies of wealth and influence. She was becoming more adept at navigating the high-stakes world she had entered. But with each passing day, the doubts in her mind only grew. Nicholas had offered her a chance to rise above the struggles of her past, but now she had to ask herself whether she was willing to sacrifice the very things that had kept her grounded. Her humanity, her compassion, her sense of right and wrong, in exchange for a life that promised power and success. The answer wasn't clear, and with every decision she made, Lily knew she was edging closer to a place where she could never go back. One evening, as she sat on the terrace, overlooking the gardens, Nicholas approached her once again. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there beside her, his presence familiar and reassuring. "You're thinking about it, aren't you?" he asked, his voice quiet but direct. Lily nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She didn't need to say anything. He knew her too well. "Remember, Lily," he said softly, "there's no turning back. Once you cross this line, you can never go back to the life you once knew." Lily looked out over the gardens, her heart heavy with the weight of her choices. She had already crossed the line. Now, it was time to see just how far she was willing to go.